Hi there. Welcome to Conscious Nation Radio. I'm your host, Aparna, and I'm really excited this afternoon to have here with me a guest, Danny Levine. Danny is calling all the way from San Diego, California, and we're going to talk about a topic that I know a lot of people ask me questions about, and that's around leadership today and bringing more consciousness and heart into the business world. And Danny has had a chance to work with people of all walks of life. He's lived he's been a monk for 10 years or lived in a monastery. And he's also worked with all kinds of corporate people, being a part of Hay House and a lot of different entities. So Danny, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you again.
My pleasure. I would love to have some of your wisdom on, these are times where I know you talk a lot about our heart and how the heart is what the journey we are all taking. And that's kind of what brings us all together. But what I want to focus on is the heart as it relates to the business community and the world of work. It was always a tough 4-letter word, LOVE, love,
Okay.
in the business community. So, or at least the way I kind of understood it throughout my professional career. I come from a pretty solid professional background. I've worked for a lot of big companies, and I was an Obama Fellow on entrepreneurship, and I got to travel all over the world to talk about entrepreneurship and talk to people about business. And I always felt like I always had to showcase how smart I am and how I know all these things. And I've been, just with the bio and the all the names and everything, as opposed to really leading with the heart, even though I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So being a woman, it should be easier for me to dial into my feminine energy. And I think that a lot of women out there, it's that whole pantsuit generation where we want to look like women, appreciate the nuances of being a woman from an appearance standpoint. But then when we walk into the door in a corporate setting, we kind of want to let that go and prove that we're just as masculine as the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful place to start a conversation. Um, so let me sort of set a background for me to
Sure.
answer this question, and if I can, I believe anytime we try to be other than we are,
Yeah.
we already have one foot in a hole that we have a hard time getting out of.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something so intoxicating and about a world where people are allowed to just be themselves. And one of the things that I feel like Bucky Fuller said it, and I love it. He said, we can't solve the problems of today with the thinking of today. We have to create a new paradigm that makes the old paradigm obsolete. And I believe that new paradigm is coming. I believe that new paradigm is the paradigm of the feminine. Us white men have had our chance to blow it for a long time, and we've done a very good job blowing it. I mean, we've had some successes, and we've had some, but the time for domination, the time for control, the time for dominance and power over and verticality of relationships, I believe, is over. There's something so beautiful about, I'm just going to give you an image about the feminine energy. To
Mm.
me, it's like the flower. When you walk by a flower and the flower is open and it emanates its aroma, it stops you dead in your tracks. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You just can't take, you just stop and smell it. And that smell just is so beautiful and fills you with so much that it literally changes the trajectory of your day, because you're racing and racing and racing to get somewhere, and this flower just stops you dead in its tracks and says, hold on. And we even have a saying, you need to stop and smell the flowers. We
Yeah,
say
stop
that,
and smell the roses. Yes.
right, we say,
And yeah, and absolutely. And that's I guess in the corporate world, we call that sometimes presence.
Yeah.
and presence is being able to be dialed into our own authentic self, whatever
Yeah.
that may be, whether it's male or feminine. But in yoga, we always say there's a dance between the masculine and feminine that each individual leads. So
Yes.
there has to be that balance between the two. And, for me, I know that I really struggled with being able to bring that feminine side because I was always so driven towards success that I wanted to make sure that have all the education, I have all the big names on my resume, I have all the things the pedigree of what I thought success was. It
Yeah.
was not until I dialed into this whole another, I've always been spiritual, but I never wanted to bring it to the corporate world.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep two different lives. It's just that I started getting sick living that way. So I had to kind of learn to be whole. And it was a pretty long path for me, and that continues. But what are your thoughts on? I mean, you've been working with so many different people, especially in the creative community as authors. So,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on, all these authors right now? I feel like everybody wants to get their word out. Like you walk through any store, there are more books on self-help, personal development, all
Yeah.
that, and people are eating it up. There's a lot of content being put out, and there's a lot of content being digested. I feel that we've reached a stage, though, where even here in this kind of self help area, we are putting out a lot of masculine content.
Yes.
We're like, okay, if you don't, I recently heard this on one of the Hay House events where they said, if you don't have an X amount of followers on your Instagram or YouTube, we won't even look at you as a potential author.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's masculine energy. What happened
Totally.
to somebody? Yogananda may not even, it's one of the biggest spiritual books, best spiritual books I've ever read. But I don't know if that would make the cut because people that are in that state are not really concerned with how many followers they have
No. No.
um, on YouTube or on Instagram.
So I worked at Hay House for 10 years. I was a director of business development there. And Reed and I, who Reed is the one who runs it still to this day, um, we worked together, and there was some magic that happened during those periods of time that were just beautiful. I don't believe that any of us were extraordinary human beings. I believe we were all quite ordinary. But when extraordinary people come together, we create extraordinary things. And there was something beautifully extraordinary that happened because extraordinaries got together. One of the things that happened is that a lot of the things that Hay House now does, I set in place. But I set them in place with the thought that we would adjust it as we go. It's like the teacher who tells the student, go north, and the student's so happy to have a direction and have purpose. He runs out the door and runs north. And the first few blocks, it's like effortless and beautiful. And he goes those few blocks, and then he goes into like this dense forest, and it's like quicksand all around him, and it's so hard. And he fights his way through, and he comes back to see his teacher, and he says, "Oh, you told me go north, and it was so beautiful for a couple blocks, and then it got all a mess. What happened?" And the teacher said, "You didn't listen. I what I tried to say is go north for a few blocks and then go east, but you ran out so excited, you just thought, I'm going to go north and go north and north." What we have to do in our business is we have to adjust to the reality of the situation that's happening around us. So we at the point that I initiated some of those practices, we were publishing the cream of the crop, so to speak, and I would be in the cream of the crop right now. We were publishing people that nobody knew because that was the only people we could get, and we were working hard to get them well known. When I developed a strategy to get the cream of the crop to come publish with us by creating the card decks that we created because nobody else was doing those, and I said, let us do these card decks for you. The cream of the crop came to us, and our card decks were outselling their New York Times best-selling books, sometimes 10 to 1. And so they said to me, Danny, like, we didn't do anything. This was the easiest thing we did. And nobody even knows what card decks are, and you're selling 10 times the amount of card decks that we are books. Why wouldn't we publish our books with you? I said, that's a good question. But I can tell you the easy answer is you're getting $1 million advance and we can't give that to you, but we can give you a lot of other things. The ability to see differently than the way we see is so important. And what's important now in the business world that we live in is it's really time to allow this feminine presence to come in. Everybody, I can't tell you how many people I meet. Do I have time to tell you one more story?
Sure.
So, when my parents passed away, I moved in with my aunt and uncle. My uncle is a household name in America and around the world. We didn't know them very well. They lived in a different part of the country than we did, and we didn't have much affiliation with them. So I came as a stranger into this beautiful situation, and they were kind enough to offer me their life. My uncle watched me a month, about a month and a half, and he said, "I'm going to offer you something that will change the trajectory of your life forever. I'm going to tell you tomorrow. I want you to come into the office after school. I want you to push a broom. I want you to clean up, and you're going to start pushing a broom, and you're going to work your way up to my seat, and I will mentor you all along the way, so that in about 15 years, you're 15 now. By the time you're 30, you'll be running this $1 billion company." And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "What a beautiful offer that is, but I have no idea who you are. I would like to watch you for a year and see what I think. After that, I'll tell you after a year what I see." And he said, "Danny, do you know that 99.99999% of the people would have said, 'Can I go to the broom closet today and start today?'" I said, "Just our rotten luck. I'm the 0.00001 that doesn't, because I want to see, I don't want to just do it because I can make a lot of money. I want to do it because it feels right to me."
Mm.
One of my best friends during that period of time got so mad at me when I turned down that offer, because he wanted to do deals with me. He wanted to live in that world. And it was only years later, I saw him about 20 years, 25 years later. I was in the Mandarin Oriental in New York,
Mm.
and I was staying there because I was friends with the people. I was friends with the people who ran the hotel, and they would give me a friends and family rate. So it was cheaper to stay in the Mandarin Oriental than, like a dive hotel in New York City. It was really fabulous. And I was coming up the elevator to the 34th floor, which is where the lobby was, to go to my room, to get the elevator to go to my room. And as I was walking out, I saw someone walking in, and I noticed him, and I said, oh my God, Neil." And he looked at me. He said, "How do you know my name?" I said, "Boy, you don't remember me, do you?" I said, "About 25 years ago, you and I were inseparable. This is Danny. You remember Danny?" He said, "Danny, I can't believe it. I didn't even recognize you." He said, "Come on, we're going to a club now. Let's come on out with me." I said, "I don't think I'm going to do the club tonight, but I'd be happy to have breakfast with you tomorrow if you have time." He said, "No, forget the club." He said, "I've got a bottle of scotch and two cigars. Will you smoke cigars and have scotch with me?" I said, "If you want, that's what I'll do." And we sat in the lobby until 4:30 in the morning. He looked at me and he said, "Danny, when I recognized you, I I was so upset with myself for punishing you and for ridiculing you, because I have more money than God right now. I've been married 6 times. My kids don't know me or speak to me. My wife's all hate me. I live a very lonely life right now with all the money that I have. I don't know one day of fulfillment or one day of joy. When
Mm.
I look in your eyes, you look like this little fool just walking around with this happy smile and this peace inside your soul." He said, "What I wouldn't give for that." And I said, "Neil, we can do that. I'm your friend. You're still my friend. I'll do whatever. We'll sit together, and I'll work with you to get this. It's easy. You won't have a problem." He said, "I would love that." Well, since that time, 15 years ago, I haven't heard from him again. And yet, everybody in the world of that world wants to have the peace that people like you have. And yet, we hide the peace because we think we will be uh, ostracized for having it. But it's the one thing that everybody wants. They have everything else but fulfillment.
But
And
to hear, I
I don't
like,
mean to say they don't have, some people do have fulfillment too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to interject here because I actually think that it's one of those things. If you've never tasted a mango, let's say, right? It's a little considered an exotic fruit, and you've never had a mango. If you don't know what it is, or if someone tries to describe it to you, it's one of those things people say, "Oh, I'll get to that." Yeah, there are many exotic fruits out there, but people say, "Oh yeah, someday if it makes sense, I'll try it." But if you've had a mango, you always want it because you know it tastes good and you know what the
Yes.
taste is like. But when you don't have the taste of something, and this is where in lies my journey and kind of the whether it's as an author or a speaker or an influencer of any kind, is how do you make someone recognize that they should taste the mango before, if they've never had it before? So simply
S-
by describing, and that's good and bad, but that's kind of how spirituality is. It's it's something, if you've never had it or if you've not had that, without spirituality, I believe you can't really have true levels of fulfillment. But if you don't have that fulfillment, and you've never had it, you don't really know what you're missing out on. And I see people, and no judgment here, but I see a lot of people who will go through their entire life and never have tasted that exotic fruit of spirituality, and it's just fine because there is a lure to it. Yes, there's sweetness and it's divine and it's good, but there it takes a lot of work to get there. You
Yeah.
know, you get to know this one yourself. It's the hardest thing in the world. Even now, everybody wants to run around and chase everything else and complain because we are in lockdown, but without recognizing that the real person that you're being locked down and trying to be forced to get to know is yourself.
Yeah. So, Aparna, first of all, I love the way your mind thinks, and I love how clear you say what you say because everything you say is spot on true. And I want to just share with you there is such a beautiful opportunity for those people like you and me
Mm,
who have tasted the mango.
yes.
Not to walk around with mangoes to give people, but to just by the presence in which we walk. The thing that will make people want something is when they see somebody who has something they don't have and they want it. No one's ever going to want it by me telling them they should have it.
Right, true.
But when they see what they want right in front of them, they want it. And then it's just easy to give that to them.
I
And
think, yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing I will say there is, and this is just something that I have noticed in my own journey, is that yes, it's easy to share and to offer something to someone. Like you're saying, you don't want to go handing them out, but you want to be able to offer it to someone if they ask you. I just find a lot of people like your friend, and whether it's in business, whether it's people who want to be world renowned authors, or people like me who really want to put their brand name out there. um, I find it's a easy to put it on the shelf. One day when I've achieved I would have put it, had I known it was so involved, I might have said, oh, one day when I'm successful and I've checked all the other boxes, which is how actually in India, that's how, people say, come to the spiritual journey after in your, after you're 60 plus or 70, after you've done everything and you're married, you have kids, you've done this, you've done that. And then Patanjali, who is the father, considered the father of modern yoga, and wrote the Yoga Sutras, he starts the book with that line. And now yoga, you've gotten your promotion, you've gotten this, you've done that, and you realize that the only person or place you're coming back to is yourself. So
yeah,
hence now yoga, or yoga as it's meant to be, not just yoga postures. But so so we're coming back to ourselves. But I'm just perplexed sometimes at how easy it is for people to say, it's okay, I think it's great, good for you. That's the saying, right? People are like, good for you. They
yeah,
see me, they see, this extroverted girl who is now almost like, I mean, I'm kind of an introvert as the way I come across. and people are like, oh my God, good for you. But they don't
Hmm.
want to take it on. They don't want to go beyond that point.
Yeah.
So,
So, maybe maybe I've just walked the plank too many times.
mm,
But what I realize is that um, my dad always used to say this to me. He said, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But when a horse is thirsty, it'll drink up all the water you have." And
yes.
so there's no rush. I mean, we believe there's a rush because we see time and we see it all has to happen now, and we feel like if we're not good enough if we don't make our impact. The
Yeah.
world, the beauty of this world is it will continue to go on, and the beauty of this life is when people are ready, they just have to know that there are people around that they can feel the nectar coming from.
Mm,
And my goal isn't to change anyone. My goal isn't to try and make anybody different. My goal isn't to try to teach anybody anything. My goal is to be that flower that we spoke about.
mm,
That when somebody walks by, they go, "Whoa, I didn't see that coming." There's an intoxication that happens, and there's something that happens when we stop for a minute to smell that flower. A part of us dissolves in that moment, and a part of the flower enters us to fill that space. And when we have enough situations like that where we commingle together in vibration, vibration changes vibration. It's not because one's better than the other. It's because it's just all of us naturally want to be fulfilled. All of us naturally want to be happy. All of us naturally want to experience joy. We're just scared. And it's okay. Like, that's so beautiful because at a certain point, the fear of not of taking the risk to have it will meet the discomfort of not having it, and you'll have to make a choice. And in that choice, that pivotal moment, you'll choose what you choose. And if you choose to stay scared, believe me, I've stayed scared a long time. I've been around, I believe, multiple lifetimes. I've been around so many lifetimes, because I'm slower than most people. It takes me longer than most people to get it. And so I just say to people, if I can get to this place, if it's a place you even want to be at, you might look at me and say, I don't want to be where that creep is. I'm like, I don't want anything about it. But if something happens, not in the words that I say, but in the feeling and the vibration beneath the words that I say, that touches you, come aboard. Like, let's walk together, because it's when we come together, extraordinary things happen when extraordinaries come together. We were
mm.
never meant to do it alone.
I love that. And that's a great way to really close. And in closing, I am going to actually ask you one more question. And that question is around, when we want to create from uh, that place of opening that flower and sharing, and especially as it comes to being an author. So, since you worked with so many big authors, I thought I would ask you this question.
Yeah,
Is as we want to create and be more authentic, what is the thing that you encourage people to do to make sure that they stay in their flowering, in their offering, in the beauty of what they're sharing, so that it can be
beautiful.
intoxicating for the person receiving it?
When I watched people, what I saw is most people wrote the book that they most needed to read, not the book that they knew. There are people like Yogananda that I think we spoke about in another time. He wrote a book of knowledge that he knew. There, those people that do that are a handful of people, or a few handfuls. Most of us write the book that we most need to read. When I wrote the Mosaic, that was certainly the book that I most needed to read. I think what's important for authors to do is to listen to what the book is trying to say through them. I
Right.
wrote I wrote this book, and I made up characters based on my life. I said what I wanted the characters to say. I thought it would take a short while to write it. It was easy. It was my life story, told in a fableized version. 3 years later, I'm sitting pulling my hair out, saying, what the heck is going on?" The characters came to me in like a Zoom call. I wasn't channeled, but like you might be channeled, and I might. This might not be a real conversation, but their presence seemed as real to me as your presence seems to me here.
Mm,
And I said to them, "What in the heck is going on? Why are you blocking this book from being written?" And they said, "You're saying things we don't want you to say. You're putting words in our mouth that we don't want to say.
mm.
Listen to what we're saying to you to say, and just say that." When I did that, the book was done in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Everything in this world is talking to us.
Yes, that's true.
Listen to what your business is saying. Listen to what your book is saying to you. Listen to what the world wants you to say to it, rather than come out as the authority and say, "This is what I want to share to the world." Who cares?
Right.
The world is drawing on you to share something that you have with it. That's why you were created. They say the two most important days in a person's life is the day they were born and the day they find their purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mark.
our purpose is to write the book that the world is waiting for us to write, not the book that we want to write.
I love that.
And that's what these successful people did. They
Mm.
got past themselves and wrote something that was bigger than themselves. And they didn't do it because they wanted to change the world. They did it because they were explaining that what happened in their life that changed them.
Yeah, and I guess the best example of that is then Louise Hayes also because she is the founder of Hay House, and
Yeah.
I loved her presence and her mostly her message around the importance of self love and just in the unique way that she presented it.
She had a formula, and I'll share this formula with people if they want to know it.
Sure.
The formula, and it's three parts. In the first part of the book, they don't have to be equal sections. In the first part of the book, you tell your story and what happened to make you who you are today. People will be interested in that. It'll give you validation for writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is to take the technique that you were given and show that it's worked for many other people. So you show case study after case study of all the people that have done what you're suggesting and how it's helped change their life or help them have the life that they want. But both section 1 and 2, nobody really gives a darn about. One gives credibility to you, the other gives credibility to your technique. But all anybody cares about is, what is it going to do for me?
Right.
And so the third part is, this is what it's going to do for you. And when you write a book like that, if you're writing a self help book, if you follow that formula, you will have success. We took a lot of time breaking down what it was that she actually did. I don't think she even realized it's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
She just took her counseling sessions that she would do with people one on one, and wrote it, and then it got adapted to that technique, and that's as the hero's journey exists as a way to write a book for a fiction book, a nonfiction self help book. Louise Hayes' journey would be beautiful to follow.
Yes, absolutely. Especially the Heal Your Life book, because that
Yeah.
one, I noticed that she broke it up into the components of the love and the career. So I guess maybe it was organized in a certain way. But yes, absolutely. One thing I noticed about so many self help authors out there, but it's like you're saying the authenticity of the message. So
Yeah.
if you have not been through that journey yourself and you start to share things about, things based on information you've gathered, it just falls right off the wayside.
Yeah.
It just doesn't create any impact, doesn't create any kind of resonance with the audience.
Yeah.
And
Some of the best books written will never be read just because people don't have the platform to do it. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be written.
I agree with that. And it's sad to know that I don't want to be one of them, but I just know that I feel you when you say that because I want with all of my heart that my work to impact millions of people, whether it's
Yeah.
providing a voice or sharing some tools to help in their journey of finding themselves, and that's why I look to Louise Hay so highly because she was all about finding yourself and your journey to heal your life.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, well, thank you so much. Any other tips in closing?
Um, yeah. Be kind to yourself. In this process, it's when you travel the road less traveled,
Mm,
even if it's your own road less traveled, and you're just going against the grain of your own self, there are going to be a lot of things that you bump up against. Just be kind to yourself. Just allow yourself to stumble and fall. Treat yourself as if you were your own best friend.
mm,
You would never say to your best friend the things you say to yourself. So treat yourself as your own best friend. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with honor. Allow yourself to fall down. Allow the world to come to what it comes to in its own time. And to me, the new paradigm of the feminine model is not a model of a masculine model where we force ourselves upon the world.
mm.
It's a feminine model where we say, here, this is what we have. We offer it to you, and you come and take it when you're ready to have it. They'll come. Believe me, they'll come.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm starting to get chills up my spine just with this interview because I hear you and I can feel the kind of the power behind those words.
Yeah.
I live that every day of walking that journey of being kind to myself more than and also, as you can probably sense in my tone, there is this deep need to kind of really put things out there in the world, and also want them to be digested and consumed, and but in a very wholesome way. And it's like you said earlier, the world always pushes back and says, not now, or this isn't quite right. Like the world has a way of receiving you the way it wants to receive you in the time and way and kind of paving the way.
Yeah.
So and COVID is a really good example of that. I'm doing right now things that I had wanted to do for 4 or 5 years, and now they're all starting to come together.
The,
So the world brings us what we, as we say, right? The life gives you what you need, not what
yeah.
you want, but it also opens up to you.
There was a beautiful song in the 60s, and it was, it's nature's way of telling you something's wrong. And it was just, it's nature's way of telling you something's wrong. And when you just hear it and you just bump up against that thing and you continue to bump up against it, look, step back a little. Step back and just allow something else to come into existence. Like, you might be standing in a room that has a door that is waiting to be opened 2 millimeters from where you're running into the wall. But your persistence in wanting to run through the wall there just keeps you from standing back and saying, hold it, where's the door? Let me just find the door.
Mm,
And it's that gentleness of the feminine way of saying, I know there's a way. I don't have to find it. I know the door will open. I know there's a possibility here. Let me wait for the possibility. Let me allow the possibility to happen. Let me be in cooperation with this room. Let me listen to where the room is telling me to go rather than pounding my way through, which is the masculine way. And you in particular, if I could be so bold,
sure.
you have so much inside you that is wanting to come out.
Yes.
It's vital for you to get in cooperation with the world to understand how to get it out, because you are here for a big reason and you know that.
Yes.
So find the door. Just step back and listen and
Mm,
find that door, because you will walk through it and have a beautiful, beautiful gift to give to this world. You already are.
wow. Thank you. It's
Thank you for
amazing.
having
Yeah.
me here.
Thank you for being so open to share and creating a kind of a vulnerable sharing. So I appreciate it. And so, Danny, how do we find you? In this journey, in this path, whatever, whether it's the art of fulfillment. art of coming out as an authentic author. How do we find you?
I have I sent you links to my websites and to my social media by going to danielbrucelevin.com, the mosaiconline.com, my YouTube channel, all those things are there. But you know what? Whether it's me or somebody else, I just want to end with a really quick story. In
Mhm,
the lineage of my guru's guru is a man by the name of Babaji.
mhm,
Babaji is a saint that has taken on the body of an 18-year-old boy, and he made a pact that he would stay as an 18-year-old boy, and he lives in the Himalayas. And but people don't see him. He's not visible. He makes himself visible when it's right. You don't need to see me. You don't need to find me. Find that one that is waiting for you to discover them, and they will make themselves visible to you. The world is a benevolent, kind world that wants to help you if you only ask for it. It just ask for that help. Listen to what it's telling you, whether it's me or somebody else. Beautiful. I would love to be there to hold you, to listen to you, to help you, to sit with you, to walk with you. But whether it's me or you or somebody else, the world is just dying to give us the help we need. We
mm.
just don't ask for it because we think we can do it on our own. We're so independent.
So since you brought this up, and this question is going to keep bothering me if I don't share it with our audience, the word that comes to mind for me is surrender. Because when we surrender, as all great sages talk about in any religious connotation, when we surrender to the world is when the world starts to open up for us. It's that
Yes.
flowering, and it takes a deep sense of surrender. So you've worked with, I noticed Ivana Van Zam,
Iyanla Vanzant.
Iana Van Zem, and she's she's I think written a book about trust and surrender and so forth, and she comes to mind because I know she's been through a lot in her personal journey that
Yeah.
she shares, and just the personal finding herself, and she has a lot of beautiful gifts to share with the world. So, is there anything you can share with us about someone that like that who has been successful and then had to step back and been humbled and then successful again? So anything you can share here about that journey, that finding the hero within before we ever get to the hero outside?
So, yeah, thank you. Iyanla's a dear friend of mine. I love her to death. And she's just been so kind to me and so generous to me, and um, she's a beautiful, beautiful being. When we look at the lives of people, you have to look at the whole life of a person. I remember sitting with a woman by the name of Sylvia Brown. She was another dear friend of mine. She was a world renowned psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And people would come up to her and interrupt her dinner. And Montel was there with us. And Montel would say, "Can't you see we're having dinner?" And Sylvia would say to him, "You can't do that, Montel. If you're a public person and these people are making you well known, you have to give them time when they see you." And Sylvia would always interrupt what she was doing to be with people. And someone said, "It's amazing how you just became like an overnight success out of nowhere. You came." And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, I've been a 45-year overnight success. It's taken me 45 years in the pits of going through the despair and going through the suffering." Iyanla's life, the same thing. She's had her ups and downs. We have to embrace every aspect of the life that we're given in order to have the life that wants to be given to us. But when we just want this, when we want the mountaintops without the valleys, when we want to see only the goodness without experiencing the trials and tribulations, I always say to people, imagine that you're in the hand of God. It doesn't matter if you're raised up here in the hand of God or you're taken down to the bottom, and you're still in the hand of God. The view changes a little, but you're still in the hand of God. Have the courage to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil. Psalm 30:23. Have the courage to walk through that valley and know that the one you love loves you a billion times more than you could ever dream possible. And that if you, the Corridor said, if you only knew how much God loved you, you would die for joy. If we only knew how benevolent and kind this world is, that it will take us through those places of pain, but it will bring us back up and lift us up. No story ever written was a story that's interesting, was a story of someone who had good luck all the way through their life.
Mm.
The hero's journey is made of the trials, the tribulations. And so the beauty of those people is they've withstood the pain. They haven't lost their faith. They haven't lost their ability to love. They've questioned. They've fought. They're cantankerous, just like I am. I have a punching bag outside of my bedroom door, and I sometimes haul off and do a few rounds with God and
Mm.
say like, what the hell are you doing, right? But it doesn't mean that I don't love him. It doesn't mean that's just my relationship with him. And believe me, he hits back. So
Absolutely, I believe you.
yeah,
I've experienced it myself. Yeah. So, but and in closing, one thing I will say is that since we are talking about God, we always say that God, the dream that God has for us is far bigger than anything we could dream for ourselves. Many greats like Oprah and many people have always said that, or have lived that life's journey now.
yeah.
So to that, I bow and I surrender, and to your greatness, I just like really appreciate the time, the wisdom, and just all that you do. So thank you.
It's the mirror. You're looking in the mirror when you see me and seeing yourself. So bow to yourself because everything you said is what I would say to you.
Thank
Thank you.
thank you, Danny.
Was that okay?
Wait, wait. Um,
Oh.
oops.